my favorite jambalaya dish. It's chicken and sausage. So we're going to start with chicken. We're going to start with a good smoked andouille. You really don't want to use any other type of sausage, but andouille, it's the best kind, and this is what makes it jambalaya. We have a red pepper, a yellow onion, we have 2 celery stalks, some pre-mixed Cajun seasoning, and also this is very important. This is our better than bouillon chicken base. Now you can buy the little square chicken broth bases, but if you look at the ingredients on the back, you will see that a lot of them don't start with chicken. A lot of them start with salt. So make sure you choose something, a chicken base, if you're going to use one, that starts with the main ingredient of chicken. So we have some salt, some fresh thyme, bay leaves, and some parboiled rice. I'm going to make it easy and just use parboil. And also about a cup of petite diced tomatoes. The kind in a can is okay. So what we're going to do first is we're going to start chopping our veggies. Now, if you don't have time to chop, you always have the option of using a really good food processor. Sometimes when I'm in a rush, I will use a food processor because my children don't like big chunks of veggies in their meals. So when I chop it, I try to chop it nice and small enough to where you don't get a large chunk in your jambalaya. So that's what we're going to kind of do today, is just chop it into small pieces and just make sure that you get it small enough to where it will blend into the jambalaya and you won't get large chunks. About this size is good. So we're going to chop this whole red onion, or this red pepper, sorry. And also, the smaller you chop it, the better. Any way we can sneak those vegetables in for the children is a good thing. Now, once we have these veggies all chopped, we're going to start searing. Today is all about layers of flavor. We're going to start with the chicken, and the reason why we want to get it skin on is so that the chicken skin, as we sear it, will leave little happy bits on the bottom of the pan to flavor the jambalaya. So we're just about done chopping up our red onion, or that red pepper. I don't know why I want to keep calling it a red onion. It's a red pepper. I like the red pepper because it gives it a sweetness. The green pepper to me is a little bit more tart than the red pepper. This red pepper gives it a little bit more lively flavor. But if you have green pepper online, you can certainly use that as well. So we're just about done here. So that's about all we really need for that. Toss that over to the side here. Try to keep a clean space. Now, we're going to go to the onion. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions about using or chopping onion. You always want to start with a clean and sharp knife, because if you don't, then that's where the tears come. If your knife is dull and you try to chop an onion, you're releasing all of the juices out of the onion. And what that means is when all the juices get into the air and evaporates, it gets into your eyes. So just make sure, well, that your knife is sharp enough to chop your onion. The way you chop the onion is just cut it. You want to chop it on this side. Chop off a little piece at the top, and then you can peel it. This makes it easier to peel, that you don't have to go through the layers of it whole. So now that we have the onion peeled, we're wanting to make sure that we fine chop this just like we did our red peppers. It doesn't have to be perfect, but like I said, small enough that no one gets a chunk of any one thing in their dish. So here is the onion being chopped, and we want to make it as small as possible. Now my knife is not as sharp as I really want it to be, because I should be able to just slice right through this. But we're going to work with what we have. It's still going to turn out great. Just hopefully I don't have any tears coming out here. So far so good. And now that we've cut it this way into as small as you want it to be, you can just cut it this way, and your onion will come out in the little squares that you want them to be. Fine chopped. As you can see so far, no tears. So we're doing good here. We have our red pepper chopped up, and now we're chopping the onion. No huge chunks, as you can see. I'm working with kind of a slippery cutting board, so it's sliding around on me, but that's okay. We'll make it. Let's get the other half of this onion chopped here. Oh, and I feel the tears coming a little bit, so my knife wasn't as sharp as it should be. But that's okay. I'm gonna keep on going here. Always want to make sure you use a sharp knife. And if you have lemon around, always, if you step away from the onion, excuse me, and you take a lemon and squeeze it on your hands while running it under some cold water, that will also get you to stop crying, believe it or not. It works to move the air around your eyes so that it's not just the onion juices that are getting into your eyes there. So we're just about done chopping this onion. It's kind of going everywhere. And the importance of getting a yellow onion as opposed to like, say, a red onion, as I kept saying earlier, is the sweetness. Again, we're introducing so much spice in our andouille sausage that you want to make sure you have your spice, your sweet, your hot, your even the sour flavors. As many flavors as you can introduce to this jambalaya would make it all the better. Okay, so our onion is chopped. Next we're going to go to the celery. So what I'm going to do with the celery is you just want to get it as thin as you can. I don't mind chunks of celery in my dishes, but again, my children, anything that has a chunk in it, of veggies especially, they don't want anything to do with it. So I'm going to chop this celery as thin as I possibly can to make sure that it gets into the dish, that the flavors are introduced, but that you don't have any chunks in it as well. So we're chopping our celery as thin as possible. Now, one thing while I'm chopping this that I need to mention to you that I didn't mention in the beginning is you need garlic. Absolutely a necessity in this dish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce about 4 cloves of garlic into the dish. You can use more or less depending on, you know, your flavor profile or what you like. So now we're just about done chopping this celery. We're going to add it to our veggie mix. Now I know a lot of people recognize this mix as the trinity. If you cook Creole or Cajun food, that's one of the staples in their cooking is what they consider the trinity: celery, onion, and pepper. But we're just going to add one more, and that's this garlic to the mix. Garlic is really fragrant. It's an awesome addition to any savory meal just about, unless you're cooking something sweet. But did you know that the smaller the garlic, the smaller the bowl, the more pronounced the flavor? A lot of people try and go for the big garlic bulbs. However, that's not always the most flavorful. So the smaller you can get it and the closer to the middle that you can get, that's better. So what we're going to do is just take some of our garlic and we're going to mince it or small chop it and add it to our trinity mix here. Now usually when I make this jambalaya, it's a point to where when I cut the veggies and I cut the garlic, before the pot even comes on, the children are usually in here asking what I'm cooking for dinner. So you can tell already, even if you can't smell it, you can tell that it's going to be really fragrant. A nice, warm, welcoming dish for you. So we got our garlic, and sometimes when garlic is too big for you to cut like I did here, you may want to just smash it and introduce it to the dish, because that way you still get all of the flavors without having to do all the cutting. Okay, so here we go. We have our garlic cloves. Now I'm making a bit of a mess here, so let me clean this up. Always have some container for trash while you're working. So we're just going to fine chop this garlic. Doesn't take too long, but it is a labor of love. If you have a blender, if you have, like I said, a good food processor, this will have it done in no time flat. So again, we're going to fine chop, and we're going to add it to our trinity. This is the fourth part of our trinity here, if that makes any sense. All right, we're just about done. Another thing with garlic is it's another one of those things where when you chop it by hand, it gets into everything. It's hard to wash it off. I don't mind it, but your neighbors might. So just make sure you clean your hand thoroughly after you finish chopping your garlic, because it has a tendency to stay for quite a long time on your hands. And bear with me here because I have a little bit of a slippery mat, so we're gonna do some extra chopping on this. Okay, we're gonna call that good, and we're gonna add it to the trinity here. A little bit of piece in here. All right, now let's finish chopping the rest of the garlic, excuse me, and add it to our mix here. You always want to be careful too. One piece of advice I have is your cutting board. Now this one is just a temporary cutting board for this. However, when you can, please use something that has no slide to it, because this is very dangerous if you don't have knife skills. It's very dangerous to control. So make sure you have a sturdy wooden cutting board for your veggies. And always use a separate cutting board for your meats. You don't want to use the same one. So this is really a rough chopped garlic here. And I think those are so potent that we're just going to use a couple of those there. Put those to the side. Alright, so the next step, I'm just going to wash my hands a little bit here. The next step we have is our smoked andouille. Now this is my very favorite andouille sausage. It's from a smokehouse. You always want to find a good smokehouse that will give you a good quality andouille sausage. Because if it's not good, if it doesn't have flavors all the way through it, you really run the risk of ruining your jambalaya. And our whole thing today is layers of love. We want to layer that pan. It's one pan. We're going to layer it with flavor after flavor after flavor. And once it's all done, it's going to be that flavor that, you know, you get from your grandma, or you get from your aunts, that you don't know what they did to it to make it so good. Well, usually it's just time. It's just taking the time to do it right. That's where the love comes in. So now what I'm doing is I'm chopping my andouille. As you can see, I kind of split it in half here. And now I'm cutting it on what's called the bias. And what it means is just basically a slant. So I'm turning my knife to make sure that I'm cutting it into a slant. What I found is that it introduces more flavor and less of the casing on the sausage. So you don't have to worry about too much bite, but you get more meat from the sausage than you do the casing. So again, I'm going to split this in half. I'm going to turn it sideways and cut it on the bias. Now, you don't have to do this, but it makes for a great presentation as well. Alright, now that we have done that, we're going to get the last piece done here. And we're just about done to get our jambalaya dish started. Now, things do move pretty quickly after the chopping part. So, like I said, if you have a processor, then the veggies at least will go by pretty quickly. Alright, now here we go. We have all of our chopping in place, and this entire area is what's called in the culinary world mise en place, which means everything in its place. This is our mise en place. We're ready to cook. So we're going to get our chicken searing, and we're going to get our andouille in after that, and we're going to start building those flavors. Okay, so now we're about to start the layers of love in our jambalaya. We're going to start with our chicken. Now I like to use 1 chicken breast and 2 thighs. You can use just chicken breast, however keep in mind that you want a little bit of the darker meat in there to allow the flavors to really get into the jambalaya. I'm just going to put into a hot pan about 2 tablespoons of oil. And just allow the oil to heat up in the pan, maybe a little bit more than 2 tablespoons. This is a 4-quart pan, nothing too expensive. It's just a non-stick black pan. And once we have the oil in, we're going to lay our chicken skin side down on the pan. Now you definitely want to hear the sizzle. That means that all of the juices and the crispness of that skin is getting down into the pot. Make sure your heat is up nice and hot, because our goal here is not to cook the chicken all the way, but just to introduce the flavors to the skillet. This is going to cook about 3 minutes on each side. Once it's brown, we're going to flip it over and turn it on the other side. And we'll be back when that's done. Okay, we have just finished searing our chicken. Again, you don't want to cook it all the way through. Just enough to get a nice brown sear on it. We're really introducing the flavors to the bottom of the pan. And as I said earlier, when people talk about adding love, this is where it starts. Don't worry if you get a little bit of blood. It's not supposed to be all the way done. Now our next step in this is going to be to add our smoked andouille to the pan. We're going to give that a little stir. The purpose of this is once again to introduce the flavors. This is the second flavor, the second layer in our layer of love in our jambalaya. We're going to sear the andouille until it's nice and caramelized, a little bit, not burned, but really brown, because we want those sweet flavors to come through the sausage. So once we get this rendered, then we will be back with the trinity. And now our sausage is nice and caramelized, and we're going to remove it out of the pan and get ready to put our trinity in. You just need to have, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but you need to make sure you have plates lined with paper towels available, just to make sure that you have something to drain the chicken and the andouille on. So this has a lot of flavor in it, as you can see. It's starting to smell really nice in here. And we're going to add this to our paper towel lined bowl and get ready for the third layer of flavor in our jambalaya, which is going to be the trinity, the veggies we chopped up earlier. Let's just add that to the mix. Make sure you get every little bit in there, because it all counts. We're going to saute this until the onions are almost transparent. You don't want to cook it all the way, because it's still got some simmering to do. Just make sure that all of the flavors are introduced into the dish here. And try not to make a mess like I just did. Alright, now, if you can take a look at the mix, you can kind of see the color of it. It's picking up all of the juices from the chicken skin and the andouille into the onion and peppers. And it's really introducing all of those good flavors that's going to be in the jambalaya. That's the one thing about layering flavors, is just making sure that one step after the next, that you take the time to introduce every single flavor. So at the end of the dish, people wonder why it tastes so different than any other food. So we're just about done here. We're going to add our other flavors. Next, we're going to toast up the rice. We're going to add our fresh herbs to the mix. And then we're going to introduce these ingredients back into the jambalaya and allow it to simmer. Okay, so our onions are semi-transparent. We don't want this to cook all the way through once again, because we're going to finish strong, and it's going to cook all the way through as we simmer the jambalaya. Next, I'm going to add my 1½ cups of parboiled rice. Now, it's important that you do this first as opposed to doing it after you add the liquid, because as you toast the rice, it allows it to heat up, and it allows the flavors to absorb into the rice. So that's another element of getting those flavors really concentrated. I know sometimes when I eat a dish, and you can tell where the rice was added afterwards, because it doesn't have the same flavor as the rest of the dish. Well, here you can see the rice is going to be absorbing all of the flavors that we put in there. And that way, once it's hot as well, when the rice is already hot, it cooks more evenly. So you don't have those hard grains of rice throughout your dish there. So this is another little trick. Toast your rice first in whatever rice dish you're making to make sure that it's consistent all the way through the dish. And as you can see, the rice starts to get a little bit translucent. That means that the flavors are absorbing, it's heating up, it's in the party, it's along with all of the other ingredients. And now since it's toasted, we're ready to start adding the rest of our ingredients. So the first thing we're going to do is introduce our flavor. Now this is again a pre-made Cajun seasoning spice. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, just a store-bought spice is fine. We're going to add our spice to the dry rice. We're going to add salt, as much or as little as you want. And then we're going to go ahead and throw in our tomatoes too. Now, all of this is going to just saute up together. There's no trick to it. We're going to mix all of this together and allow the flavors to really concentrate into the jambalaya. Our rice is toasted, our veggies are nice and sauteed and hot, and we are about ready to get this together. Now, you can see the dish really coming together now. You can take a look at the colors and see that they're all mixing and mingling really well. And the tomatoes just add a brightness to it and a tartness to the dish that really balances it out. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add the chicken base to the mix as well. And it's okay to use a chicken base, but whenever you can, if you can always keep some homemade chicken stock in the refrigerator when you have a moment, then it just makes it that much easier to use homemade chicken stock. So we got our base in there. It almost looks like you can eat this just like it is right now, but we still got some steps to do. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and add the water. Now remember, with parboiled rice, it's 1 to 2. So 1 cup of rice to 2 cups of water. So in this we have 1.5 cups of parboiled rice. So we're going to add 3 cups of water to make sure that our rice turns out nice and fluffy and not too watery. Now this is where we're going to allow this to simmer. All of those flavors, it's coloring the mix, it's turning into the jambalaya that you're probably used to seeing. So we're going to reintroduce all of these flavors back into the jambalaya. We're going to put back in the andouille sausage, and we're going to stir that in. It's looking really beautiful right now. And then we're going to reintroduce the chicken. The only trick to this, and one thing I do need to mention, is to make sure that you remove the skin now, because the skin has served its purpose. The main purpose of the chicken was to use the skin. So we're going to remove the skin, and we're just going to stick it in the pot. Nothing to it, really easy. It's no hard task to do this part of it. Now a lot of people might complain that this is a lot of steps for jambalaya, but I promise you if you take the time and add the love and add the layers, it will be worth it. You make a lot of good friends this way. Okay, now that we have the skin removed, we're going to put the chicken skin side down into the pan. And as you can see, we're already boiling here. This party is ready to get started right now. And they are not waiting. So let's hurry up and get the rest of our ingredients in. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to introduce our fresh herbs. Now I like using thyme. It's the best smelling thing to me. All I'm going to do is take my thyme leaves, hold it right side up, take your fingers, and simply pull the stalk. All of your leaves just come right off of the thyme. So it's no hard mincing. There's no hard mixing or chopping with this. Leave it in there whole. I love it that way. Now if you do have someone who doesn't want you to use whole thyme, or they don't like to have those little leaves, then you can always mince it or throw it in a food processor along with your trinity. But this is the way I like to do it. Now that the thyme leaves are in the mix here, we're just going to add our bay leaves. We're going to cover the jambalaya, and we're going to allow it to simmer for about 20 minutes until it's done. Now halfway through, one thing I do need to let you know is that we will be removing that chicken and we will be shredding it once it's completely done. So don't think we're going to leave the chicken in there whole. And it's okay if you get a few stalks of thyme. I don't mind it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and add a sprig onto the dish, and we'll remove that at the end of cooking. Now we have our bay leaves. We're going to just go ahead and add 2 bay leaves to the mix. Give it one quick stir to make sure our chicken is all the way in there and that it's mostly covered. And once you've done that, it's ready to simmer. And that's jambalaya. It's as simple as that. Nothing too hard about it at all. It's one pot. Allow that to simmer for 20 minutes and we're good to go. So as you can see, our jambalaya is nearly done. It's been all of maybe 10 or 15 minutes to cook the rice. So what we're doing now is we're pulling the chicken out of the mix here because we're going to need to peel it. Now make sure you keep shaking your pot to make sure your rice doesn't burn. Don't stir it. If you stir it, you run the chance of ruining the rice because you're allowing the rice to get sticky when you stir it. Just leave it alone and let it do its job. Now one thing I do want to mention is on this part, you really want to make sure that you do this ahead of time so that the chicken can be cool. Now I just took it out so it's still kind of hot. But I'm going to quickly chop this up and I'm going to reintroduce it back into the jambalaya. It only takes a moment to do it, but again, if you can get this pulled out maybe 5 minutes before it's done cooking and have it shredded, then it will save you the hassle of doing it, shredding the chicken while it's hot. Now, this is the part where you can have either, your husband or your spouse, your significant other come in and do this part while you start making dessert or whatever else you're going to make. Get the family involved. So now we've pretty much shredded up the chicken. It all depends on how chunky you want your chicken to be in your jambalaya. We got a little bit of white meat from the chicken breast, and then we have some dark meat from the thigh. Now the thigh might not be cooked all the way through, and that's okay because we're still going to introduce it to the heat again. So here we are, we have it all shredded, and we're simply going to reintroduce it back to the jambalaya. Spread it all around. If you can get it a little bit more shredded as you're putting it in, you can certainly do that as well. But make sure that you can actually handle the meat before you shred it. I would hate for someone to get burned there. So now we're just about done, and this meat is still hot. So I'm going to keep on cutting it here and introducing it to the jambalaya. And that's all you really need to do. Now at this point, since our jambalaya is really almost done, what we can do is just kind of mix the chicken in just a little. You don't want to do this while you have too much chicken broth still in it, because again, you aggravate the starch on the rice, which could make your rice end up sticky. Now see, my jambalaya is really done. So all I'm going to do is turn the heat off. Make sure that the chicken is well stirred into the jambalaya. Don't stir too much, but just enough to introduce the flavors. We're going to take out our bay leaves that we added because we don't want anyone chewing on that one. I actually had my son tell me I accidentally left a bay leaf in, and he said he chewed it anyway because the jambalaya was so good. So, but don't do that. Don't leave the bay leaves in. So now our jambalaya is done. All we have to do now is plate this up. Okay, our chicken has been shredded and added back to the jambalaya. Now we're at the final stages, which is plating. Now we want this to be a family style meal. So I've gotten a plate, and a good way to find some good serving dishes is at your local thrift store. This is what I got from the thrift store. Cleaned it up really nice, and it was a really low cost for a really good plate. So I'm going to take the jambalaya, and I'm going to add it to the plate. And there's really no rhyme or reason to this. Just add it on any way you see fit. As you can see here, the rice is nice and fluffy. You have all of your chicken, you have all of your sausage, and all of those layers of flavor that we talked about throughout the whole dish. They're all included, and it is going to be an awesome taste. The time that it takes to chop the veggies or to use your food processor or to do those steps is well worth when you sit at dinner time and serve them this meal. It's a lot of love in it. It's a lot of time. Takes a little bit of effort, but it's worth it. And I promise you, you'll be their favorite at the end of the meal. Lots of hugs. So here we are, and we're just gonna lay this on. Add your andouille. Make sure you save a little bit of andouille for the top of it, just for presentation. And here's our little thyme sprig we added earlier. You want to make sure we take that out. We're just about done here. And the key with plating is just make sure you don't have anything on the sides of the dish. You want to make sure it's really clean around the edges. It just makes for a better presentation here. We're going to stack this up as high as we can so it can look nice and pretty. One thing about being from the South is sometimes it's all about presentation and having those big beautiful dishes waiting for you at the table, dinner time. I just remember those things as a kid, and this is what this reminds me of. So now that we are done adding all of the andouille and the chicken and everything to this jambalaya, this is the last part. I'm going to make sure it's nice here. Beautiful plate presentation. Clean up anything that's not supposed to be there. Alright, and as your last piece of the puzzle here, and your last layer of love, we're just going to add some chopped green onion on top. Again, it is for presentation, but it serves a purpose. You're also adding one last little piece of flavor onto the dish. One last little piece of crunch there. And this is ready to be served to your family, to your loved ones. This can be for church dinners, potlucks, however you want to dress it up, you can do it. And there we go, our finished jambalaya. Again, with this we had chicken, andouille, red pepper, onion, and also we had garlic, parboiled rice. We use parboiled rice because it's even cooking. And then at the end of all of that, once we add our Cajun seasoning and our salt and our rice and our tomatoes, it's just sprinkle a little garnish. If you have parsley, use parsley. Whatever will make the dish come together really nice. And that is my favorite jambalaya dish.